And this is the school that he got into. This is the school that was right for him. It's a private school. It's half an hour away, but we also managed to get transport for him. He's so happy. He's so thriving. He's around children just like him. And he is doing amazingly. One of the things that God taught me is delay is not denial. God is not confined to just one way in which he works. He works in many ways. He works in the delays. The second thing is we have to sometimes go through a grieving process on how we think life is meant to be. Another thing he taught me is surrender even when it's not comfortable. The fourth thing is even when things are not going our way, we really have to know how to have joy and to really take the positive out of those experiences. Another thing he taught me is what we think is right for our children or right for a thing isn't always God's perspective. My perspective is not God's. Hi. In my last video titled God Bought Me a House, I shared the process and the journey of purchasing my first home. And in that, there were so many incredible testimonies and favor and door upon door opening. But when I moved into my house, what awaited me after that was not simple. God still moved, but in that, there was a lot of trial and error. And things didn't really go how I thought it was going to go. And so I'm going to focus today about particularly my eldest son and his journey of having no school to going to a private school. There is so much to this story, and I really don't want to keep you for a long time. And so I'm going to really try to break this down as quickly and as easily as possible, without going into too much personal details, because I believe in protecting my son until the Lord obviously leads me, if he leads me, to share more details. But to put it this way, he doesn't fit into a mainstream setting. He needed a school that would suit his needs. And so this narrows this down quite a lot, because he was not on the extreme of needing like a high-end special needs school. And so the types of needs that he has, there's not many schools that can accommodate for those needs. I found the most perfect one in London. That in itself, the London story, and, you know, when I didn't move yet and I was looking for a school, that in itself was a whole journey. That in itself was a process. And then an amazing door opened for him 5 minutes away from my house. And I couldn't have picked a better school. So when I moved, I was like, Lord, how's this going to work? Like, you know, can you still, I'm going to have to trust you, Lord, to open the same door. Now, in my mind, I had this school in my mind. I was trying to replicate this school. I needed to find this school. I really thought it was going to be a simple process. He has got an EHCP. And so, you know, we have a caseworker. And I had to wait for that to be assigned. Where I thought it was going to be simple and easy, there was the first obstacle of my caseworker being on annual leave, can't speak to anyone else, has to be this person. And so that was already a roadblock. Then, because the schools were just starting up again in September, everyone was busy. No one was available. No one was picking up their phone. I ended up feeling like I was doing my casework or his caseworker's job by calling the schools when she's meant to be doing that. Anyway, when we finally had this meeting and she gave me a list of schools to look at, I went on my journey and started to look. But it wasn't like with the schools in London where you could kind of turn up and they just give you a tour outside of tour times. This was a place where most schools were like, nope, you have to wait for tour times. You can't just come in. So I was already hitting all of these roadblocks. I went from school to school and it wasn't the right fit for him. Either the needs were, you know, for children on different extremes. This wasn't him. It was a very unique and niche place that he needed. And that was already very difficult in London, never mind in a place where it's a lot smaller and there's not many schools. And so that process, honestly, was from challenge to challenge. The schools I liked, I had to wait to hear back. We waited weeks, thinking we're just going to get a yes. Nope, they didn't feel they can meet his needs. Or, oh no, sorry, they are fully booked. There's just nothing they can do. They'll put me on a waiting list that's already a long waiting list. And so I just felt like I was dealing with delay after delay after delay after delay. There were so many details in that, but I advocated for him. I did a lot of research, and I had a friend that worked in a similar field who was able to advise me. And I fought for him. I fought for some opportunities. I fought for some rights in the meantime. In the midst of this, I'm navigating a child who has moved from his comfort zones. He was in London with all of his friends. He had an idea of what school he wanted to go to. And he's obviously left behind my parents, whom he's really close to, and all the other extended family that he has. And so where I now am feeling that disappointment for him because the expectations that I had for him is now not happening. There's a lot of delay here. And I'm seeing him retreat. I'm seeing him having moments of crying because here he is just on his own in this area, and I haven't provided him a school, and I haven't provided him that social network that I really hoped for him. And so things were just not working out how I thought it would. Fast forward, they gave me a tutor. And I was like, do you know what? It's something. At least he's doing something. Let me take it. They would only give me 10 hours. And I'm like, what can I even do with 10 hours? So I'm here like traveling 2 hours. It was only 2 hours every day, or I could have did it how I felt to do it. But I did 2 hours a day at first. Then the people that were going to see him, they were cancelling, they were sick. So it just felt like closed door or frustration after frustration. Then because of the social aspect, I had to fight to get him, some kind of social activity. And so I found him this farm activity in the middle of nowhere, honestly. And that in itself was just, I can laugh about it now, but at the time I just thought, what is happening, Lord? I know you've brought me here, but things are not really happening exactly how I thought they would. And so bless my mum, God bless her, honestly. She took the time out, came down. So I started to do a little bit of temping, a little bit of work here and there, because the jobs that I had found, the jobs I was going for, I was like, actually in the interviews, I was like, I can't even commit to this because I haven't even found a school for my son. So I'm feeling that disappointment because I'm feeling like doors are already closing for me. What seemed like great opportunities for me, and they were perfect. It was part-time work, good money, the flexibility I needed. And yet doors are closing because I can't even commit to this because of my son. And where in my mind I thought it's going to happen quickly, it's going to happen easily. It wasn't. It was just delay after delay, frustration after frustration. And yet I had a word from God, and I knew that if he brought me here, he would have to see me through. And I had to keep reminding God, I had to keep saying, look, you brought me here, you need to provide. And so that's difficult because when we're waiting, when it feels like we're dealing with delay, it's very difficult to kind of see God's hand in this when you just can't see any other way. And so it was quite funny. He was doing this farm activity, and bless my mum, taking 2 buses to get there and sitting in a local cafe in the middle of nowhere, looking over countrysides, while he had this activity. And God bless her, honestly, that was just some days to remember. But, I guess it gave him something, but it wasn't really enough. And I was trying to find other things for him, but again, like more doors that were open, but not the right doors. Found him a place, but it was for children that had been kicked out of school due to, negative behaviors. And that's not my son's story. And I didn't really want him to be around that influence. So I was like, okay, so door open, but it's not the right door. So then we're still on this journey of trying to find a school. Doors are just closing. And apparently the council, even though they have to find your child a school, the local authority, have to find you a school, there's not necessarily a time frame on that. They just do their best. But if doors are closed, they just have to find alternative things. And I was like, he can't just sit with a tutor. Like, this isn't him. This isn't good. This isn't right. I can't stand for this. I had to go deeper in prayer. I had to really trust God because it just looked like so many closed doors. Then he got an offer for a school and it looked great. Honestly, I thought this is amazing. I went there, and sadly, it was a school for children that have behavior issues, social mental behavior issues. And that didn't fit his story, didn't fit the category that he came under. And so begrudgingly, because there was no other school available, it would have been easy for me to just take it because I was desperate. I needed a school. I needed to work. I needed, the list goes on. But it wasn't the right fit. And so we have to still trust God, right? When doors are closing, and trust in him to open at the appointed time. There were some other schools that were on the list and they had taken ages to get back, or they took a long time. There was also another school, perfect, honestly perfect. But because of one area, they couldn't meet his need. And that was another disappointment, another slap in the face. Every time, it was that anticipation as well of having good conversations, of having meetings, of driving around, having these appointments, thinking that this is going to be the door, and then it shuts. It's quite disheartening. But I kept trusting in God, even though it was deflating, even though I was questioning him, like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do this? Come on, Lord, like, you brought me this far, like, what's going on? And anyway, fast forward, and there was a school that finally got back and said, okay, we have some availability. We might be able to meet need. Let's meet. At first, I would have never, ever put this as the school for my son. But I guess because God did a process in me, actually my whole perspective changed because I had to lay down things the way that I thought it was meant to look. Fast forward, for the sake of time, fast forward, and this is the school that he got into. This is the school that was right for him. It's a private school. It's half an hour away, but we also managed to get transport for him. He's so happy. He's so thriving. He's around children just like him. And he is doing amazingly in many ways, and testimonies and stories for another day. But in that process, there were so many areas of disappointment, so many areas of closed doors. He taught me so much in that time. One of the things that God taught me is delay is not denial. It's a phrase that many of us have heard. But when it's personal to you, it hits different. Because the house happened in such an amazing way that it's almost like we're looking for God in the same way in every other area of our life. But God is not confined to just one way in which he works. He works in many ways. He works in the delays. He works in, different processes for different things. And in that, I had to really know what it is to surrender my thoughts, my will, my ways to him. The second thing is that, we have to sometimes go for a grieving process on how we think life is meant to be. I already went through a grieving process knowing that he wasn't right for a mainstream school. And that was difficult. I went to a mainstream school. I wanted him to have the same experiences that I had. And that in itself was a grieving process, even when I was in London. But because I had it in my mind how I thought it should look, how I thought it should be for my son, I was looking for that. And it's only until the doors kept closing that I came to the end of myself. And it's so funny because God is so merciful to us. He doesn't always talk in a clear, obvious way. But when this door actually opened and I was able to just reflect, I was like, I still had to mourn some things. It's not the type of school where he's moving around to different classes. It's not like that. It's a very small room. There's children that are like him, similar needs, and they're getting all the help they need. They still get all these opportunities. He's doing horticulture, he's doing swimming, he's doing athletic, doing all of these things. And also they will integrate the children into mainstream lessons as well in a mainstream school. They work alongside them for certain subjects that they can thrive in. And so it was opening my mind and perspective in ways that I hadn't even considered or thought about. And I was like, wow, Lord, I see it now. But it wasn't the school that mirrored the same one in London. Isn't God so awesome and intentional about how he does all things? I could honestly think of so many lessons that I learned in that. But honestly, surrender, even when it's not comfortable, is something that really sat with me in that time. Because I just had an assumption of how things were going to be. And that's not how God works. But in that, he still expects us to trust him. In that, we seek him. In that, we have to look at all the little things in the midst of things not going our way, which we can find blessings in. So I got to spend beautiful one-to-one time with my son. And after having 2 young children, that's difficult. But we got to bond. We got to, really enjoy each other. And that's the fourth thing. Even when things are not going our way, we really have to know how to have joy and to really take the positive out of those experiences. I remember a time when my mum and I went to drop him to this farm area, the same thing. And we were just having this lovely lunch in this random, cafe somewhere overlooking the country. And actually, we had good times. We were able to really bond and have a laugh and, just see a new perspective to things. And so even when things are not going our way, or even when we're waiting on something, we still have to have joy. We still have to be positive. We still have to draw the positives out of that situation. I had no idea that God was doing a work in me further, that God was really teaching me that not every miracle is sudden. Sometimes it really is in the waiting. Sometimes it's in the trusting. Sometimes it's in the laying down of how we think things are meant to look. Listen, had I done things my way, or had the doors opened the way I thought it would be, he wouldn't be in a private school. He wouldn't be in a space that was right for him. And so another thing he taught me is what we think is right for our children or right for a thing isn't always God's perspective. And so I had to learn that my perspective is not God's. I'm a very strong-willed character. I think I know how I want things. But when we're really surrendering to God, he knows us. He knows our children more than we even know ourselves. Does that mean it's easy? No. Does that mean sometimes we're mourning some things? Yes. But now I look at my son, he's thriving, he's happy, and that will move on to other things that I'm going to share in following videos about, the church I found, all these other things that's happened since moving here. Good, indifferent, difficult, testing, because not everything is a straight line. I really hope that this is encouraging you. I really hope that someone out there is not going to give up just because things are not going the way they think or thought it would go. And if you need any help, any prayer, anything that I can help with, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to pray with you and happy to answer any questions if you're experiencing something similar. That is the end of this story. There were so many details in that, but I really had to try and condense it. And I really hope you're blessed. Thank you so much for your time. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.